Sofa Squad, today's video comes with a major trigger warning. Today's video covers a topic that's not really talked about that often in true crime, and it's a mass casualty event. Now, the one that we're going to be discussing happened just south of downtown Nashville at the Covenant School in 2023. This would tragically take the lives of 6 people. Now, law enforcement arrived, acted swiftly, and within about 15 minutes that initial 911 phone call, the perpetrator, who was 28-year-old Audrey Hale, was also killed. Now, the Sandy Hook promise suggests that approximately about 93% of these events are premeditated. Hale meticulously planned her assault by making a detailed map of the school and conducting surveillance on the building. Now, she even went a step further and, under the guise of nostalgic alumna, scheduled a tour of the school, okay? Now, although Covenant just marked the 2-year anniversary of the tragedy, this case has come back into the headlines because in late March, Metro Nashville's homicide unit released their investigative case summary. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to break down exactly what the authorities were able to derive through their comprehensive investigation. So I also want to begin this by very quickly talking about Audrey Hale's gender identity. So coverage of the case that I've seen, it shows reporters who they constantly talk about, she openly identified as a lesbian and, she was going to transition this and do this and that or whatever. So from what I've seen through this, I didn't really see, in my humble opinion at least, any kind of correlation between who she was, what she wanted to be, or any of that related to what she did, okay? Now, there are some definite other personality issues going on there, okay? And keep in mind, ain't no doctor, ain't no lawyer, ain't none of that fancy credentialed stuff. All I got is a hotel sofa and some cheap sass. So there is that, right? And now what we're going to do is, before we dive any further into the case, let's take care of some housekeeping first and answer some of the burning questions that we always seem to ask after these events. So regarding Audrey's death, at the scene, officials were poised to take her into custody, but because there's the fire alarm going off, the sound of her own gunfire, earplugs, whole 9 yards, she wasn't able to hear them approach from behind. Now, Audrey was in possession of 2 assault-style weapons and a pistol. An additional search warrant revealed a small arsenal of 7 firearms, all of which were purchased legally from 5 different stores within the Nashville area. Now, after the immediate scene was secured, investigators began collecting evidence from around the perimeter, which included her car. Amidst the standard things authorities would ordinarily expect to find in any vehicle, like the owner's wallet, key, cell phone, whatever, there were specific items to her personal kill kit in there. There's 2 notebooks with writings and sketches, 2 thumb drives, several stuffed animals, and additional ammunition, specifically 5 fully loaded magazines. I mean, seriously. So her parents were allegedly unaware that she'd obtained most of these weapons and believed only 1 gun had previously been purchased and then soon after sold. So her family is deeply religious, and Audrey's relationship with her father sounded very strained. She considered her mom to be a rock, but felt that she was also very overbearing and that her traditional beliefs would always prevent her full acceptance. Now, I'm not going to go in depth about the tragedy, in the terrifying circumstances surrounding honestly the senseless slaughtering of 6 innocent people, or the technicalities of her weaponry. I'll link the full report in the description box if you want to read that specific part, but we're going to just not do that because it's very bad, it's very triggering, it's very sad. So now that those formalities have been taken care of, go ahead and grab your favorite blanket, sink into those fluffy cushions, and let's jump back into it. Now, what else did authorities learn about Audrey during the investigation? So let's begin by first looking at some of the things which are unique to this case. So let's look at age. Audrey was 28 years old when her actions would turn a Christian elementary school into a literal killing field. According to the Journal of Pediatric Healthcare, the average age of an offender who commits one of these school-related rampages is like 16 years old. Okay, let's talk about the location. Since we are all basically detectives here, okay, we all kind of have learned at this point that oftentimes for some of these crimes like this, especially of this magnitude, take place, these often will hold a significance for the offender. Now, according to a study by the NYPD's risk mediation back in like 2016, in instances where the target is a school, and I'll quote, 3 out of 4 were current or former students. In the case of Audrey, it was the latter, but not for reasons you may think. Covenant wasn't a place for which she held like this deep resentment. In fact, it was quite the opposite. During her formative elementary school years, like K through 4th grade, these were the ones that she, and I quote here, she considered the happiest during her childhood. She felt safe, accepted, and made friends with other students, which spilled over into her family life, experienced a happy, positive relationship with both of her parents and brother. Okay, so there's that. Now, the whole gender thing, let's talk about that. Again, there's no disrespect intended here. The reporting indicates this. So nothing has been found to suggest, I'm going to quote this, nothing has been found to suggest she initiated or was undergoing a transition at the time of her death, including medical documentation. During autopsy, it was determined that she was biologically female. Applying this rationale, Audrey defies the unkempt, wide-eyed male, white male standard that seems to consistently dominate the news feed, especially with stuff like this, right? Now, the Violence Prevention Project graphic illustrates the overwhelming frequency, 98%, that offenders in this type of crime are male. And the NBC graphic was published in direct relation to the Covenant school tragedy. So after Covenant, Audrey spent the remainder of her schooling in institutes that would cultivate her artistic side, which really began to blossom during her time in elementary school. Audrey's junior high years were spent at Creswell Middle Magnet School for the Arts. Then she moved to the Nashville School of the Arts, NSA, for high school. Now, she would go on to earn like a bachelor's from NOC. She would also go on to earn a bachelor's from NOC College. Now, however, it was her time at Creswell Middle School that seemed to impact her the most. As a student at Covenant, most of her classmates were white, middle-class families, wealthy households, this kind of thing. At Creswell, most of her peers were largely from minority groups and came from working-class households. Now, this made Audrey a target for bullying, believing, and I'm going to quote it here, and it says, she was a rich white girl and worthy of derision. This was a significant blow to her self-esteem and self-confidence. Now, however, in 7th grade, and I'll quote again, shy and introverted Audrey would make the school's basketball team. Now, although she was like a year younger than most of her teammates, she felt they were accepting and protective of her. Audrey indicated that this was the first time she felt like she really had true friends. Now, eventually, teenage hormones kicked in and she developed romantic feelings for some of her teammates. Now, sadly, with most of the team moving on to high school, she felt alone, her low self-esteem returned, and this would eventually culminate in anger during high school when her former Creswell teammates had moved into different social circles, and she wasn't successful in connecting within their already established groups or with any other social clique at NSA. Now, her grades began to fall, and it was during this time that she made comments about self-harm. She began seeing a therapist who, after they performed a psychological assessment, they concluded that Audrey suffered from varying degrees of depression, anxiety, social phobias, anger management issues, and was underdeveloped both emotionally and socially. Now, this is just my degree in the old armchair psychology talking, but from what I can see, okay, the mental health problems she presented with during adolescence foreshadowed the psychopathy that we see in a large percentage of these type of offenders. Now, her loneliness and isolation, along with like the regular stressors of just being a college student, caused her to really develop this eating disorder. And she actually attended an eating disorder clinic during the summer of like 2017, I think. Now, this would help her gain back some much needed weight at this point, and it helped alleviate some of the symptoms of her anxiety and depression. But she remained overwhelmingly lonely. Now, it was during this time that her isolation escalated and began bleeding into the dangerous. As she started monitoring her middle school friends through like social media posts, collecting details about their lives, and I'm going to quote it here, she downloaded numerous photographs from posts they made to their respective accounts and kept tabs on events of their lives without her. I mean, wow, right? So this only exasperated her loneliness and despair, and that she would like never find romance, never meet anybody, whatever. Mia Phillips, one of her former teammates, during an interview with the Tennessean, explains that she and Audrey attended different high schools and as a result they drifted apart. Now Audrey would reach out to her on social media over the years, and she explained, and I'll quote her, "Audrey often referenced our time together in middle school. It was mostly sweet, but sometimes it was unnerving." Phillips provided reporters with an account she found particularly disturbing. Again, I'll quote here. "When I arrived at Middle Tennessee State University and set up my email for the very first time, there's one from Audrey waiting for me. On occasion, I received memorabilia from her connected to her time on the basketball team. I have no idea how she knew my address. I'm trying to be as respectful and honest as possible, but it felt obsessive. It felt like stalkerish behavior," she said. "It never escalated to the point where I felt like I needed to contact authorities." Now, Phillips made sure to indicate like others and whatnot also felt uncomfortable and confused by interactions with Audrey the year prior to the attack. She also discussed a couple of times that she showed up in places where her former teammates were gathered, and one such time was a birthday party at a restaurant during which Audrey was like acting kind of like intoxicated, just like a little bit crazy or whatever. The entire group felt like it was some sort of ruse to garner sympathy as she wasn't seen drinking. You can identify with this, like we've seen people like this, especially in high school, where they try to be a certain way for attention. It's really sad. It's really sad, like, and also cringy. Now, Phillips left early and Audrey DM'd her repeatedly, begging her to come back. She made the point of saying the messages were too coherent to be written by someone so drunk. Now, about 7 months before the massacre at the Covenant, one of Audrey Creswell's teammates, Sydney Sims, was killed in a car accident. Her sister Taylor contacted the Tennessean saying that neither of them had any contact with Audrey for years until she attended Sydney's funeral. Soon after that, she showed up uninvited to another family event and then popped up at my sister's painting, and we still don't know how she found out. I think the painting thing that they're referring to in this is like some kind of live event, like where somebody's doing like a live painting or whatever. So anyways, now even with medication and therapy, any previous progress that Audrey made was only temporary. She proved unable to cope with the loss of the friend group she made in junior high, and up until this point, the case summary has given us like a fair breakdown of the uncertainty related to her psychological well-being. We've seen it gradually grow grimmer for both Audrey and those around her. Now, you know I graduated at the top of my class with a PhD in true crime psychology from the University of my Sofa. Thank you very much. Okay. And my training says all signs point to a total collapse, a crash out, if you will, okay? Audrey's depression, coupled with social dejection, shows her detaching from reality and coping within an imagined world. Health-related data gathered during the investigation indicates, and I'll quote here, isolation and loneliness led Hale, Audrey, to begin believing the only true friends she could confide in were her stuffed animals, who she felt would never abandon her. She assigned them names and personalities, took them with her wherever she traveled, and began creating cartoons and digital media, including stories, where they demonstrated some of the same emotions she felt. Now, you'll recall authorities noted finding several stuffed animals while executing a search warrant on her vehicle after the incident. The more Audrey disconnected, the angrier she became. This would cloud her fantasy world with rage storms. These were long, explicitive-filled entries devoted to topics that greatly infuriated her, okay? Now, as these storms continued to surge, she spiraled more and more, and soon she'd start obsessing about mass casualty incidents. She would watch numerous documentaries and read countless articles. Her focus was not solely on schools, but rather the event themselves. However, it always ended up in the same place. Littleton, Colorado, 1999. You already know what I'm going to say, at Columbine High School. She did extensive research on the offenders and held them to the highest regard. Now, however warped this might sound, Audrey seemed to feel like a kinship with the duo from Columbine. And I'm going to quote here. She would document how their mental health history and society societal views were like her own, and how the notoriety they achieved in death led them to becoming gods. Her studies soon shifted to the perpetrators. She developed a rating system based on their number of casualties, targets, and achieved notoriety. Now, Audrey considered those offenders who took out like a low number of people, so like less than 10, these were like amateurs to her, okay? They weren't worthy of respect. That was like nothing. She further explained that those individuals who made it difficult for people who had god-like intentions to commit an attack of their own. Now, in 2018 and into the first part of 2019, she began orchestrating a plan, naming Creswell Middle School as her intended target. The more she threw herself into her plans, the more her anger grew, sinking into a cavernous abyss, culminating in the belief that her death was the only means of escaping loneliness. She felt perpetuating a mass casualty event would give her death more meaning. Audrey became laser focused on the notoriety that would elevate her to a godly status like the Columbine offenders. She thought the best way to accomplish this would be, quote, by killing victims nobody would forget, aka children. Now, right about now, you may be asking, what are you talking about, Paul? Her cold-hearted assault happened at the Covenant, not the Creswell. What you mean? Well, as it turns out, after meticulous planning, she decided that a targeted attack on a school whose student enrollment is largely minorities, like I think it was like 91%, 2022 to current times or whatever, this would like mar her notoriety. And I'm going to quote here, Audrey worried that she might be branded a racist, which would remove her ability to give motive and reason for the attack, leaving it up to others to choose for her in death. I literally need to take a 10-minute cigarette break after that right there. Like, look at the mental gym. It gives me goosebumps. Like the pure just idiocy of that. Literally, I cannot roll my damn eyes hard enough at that. That is just pure evil and pure raging narcissism in its truest form. So let's go ahead and just get back to it after that. So the behavior analysis profile of Audrey sheds light on the depths of her narcissism. I'd not immediately thought of when reading about her lifelong mental health struggles, but it all made sense. Now, the final conclusions of experts, of the credentialed people, okay, the credentialed, the for real people, these were based on her extensive writings. Some of the key points they mention about her, quote, high degree of narcissism include believing she was far more intelligent and creative than others, feeling entitled to having the things she deserved in life without having to work for it, thinking she should be fully accepted and embraced by other individuals and groups without question or reservation. Also showing a high level of selfishness by expressing that she was the one true victim of the attack. I know. Manipulating others into giving her what she wanted while railing against those who saw through her. Also remarking how her plans were perfect and destined to succeed. And most disturbingly, wanting the things she left behind to be shared with the world so she could inspire and teach others who were mentally disordered like her to plan and commit an attack of their own. I mean, seriously, y'all. So with all this and a whole lot more, okay, experts matter-of-factly assert Audrey was certainly sane. She was capable of adjusting her plans as needed, manipulating others into seeing her as a meek and non-threatening, and fully understood her attack was not only criminal, but morally reprehensible. Well, that's a certain kind of a day and a certain kind of a place, you know what, if she can be considered sane, right? Okay, make it make sense, but it is what it is. Okay, so after being in the world of Audrey, number one, she did take several people's lives. I'll put them up on their names on the screen here. I remember when Columbine happened. I can remember being at home that day and watching it unfold on the news. It gives me goosebumps. And to go back to that memory to where we are now, she's not the only one that's like done this whole idolization of these dudes and whatnot. Everybody can relate to, in some fashion, you know, middle school, teenagers, childhood. There's like not fun parts about it. Like we're growing up, our hormones are doing something, whatever, right? And in reading about Audrey and like tuning into that loneliness I was like, I think that even popular people, you can all appreciate being lonely at some point. This is a different level. And then whatever mental stuff that she had going on where she justified this and wanted to do this and, oh, I'm okay with killing kids, but I don't want people to think I'm a racist. And, you know, oh, well, we'll do this and I'll leave behind my things so somebody else can do that. I mean, just crazy stuff, right? Absolutely crazy stuff. This is a whole other level of loneliness and uncharted, I don't know what you call it, like where you don't take care of business at home or something, okay, and get things right as best as they can be. And unfortunately, this whole thing of like feeling invisible, and to me, this is what I've really got from this and a lot of these cases like this, is where people might have a hard time, whatever, they can't really adjust or make friends or something, I don't know. But it's almost like they have this extreme loneliness, this extreme invisibility aspect where they don't feel seen or heard or any of that stuff. And so their only thing to do is to just go out with a bang. I mean, no pun intended, but literally like, I'm just going to go out and make this huge, horrible exit. And then people will remember me forever. Now, here's the thing. Totally forgot about her until this popped back up. Very forgettable, right? They don't achieve what they want. And I think in this world right here, now, obviously to the victims and stuff like that, but I'm talking about like the way the Columbine thing went, which is like across the board, you can say that and kind of like people know it's not been done before. Maybe the Sandy Hook thing. So these things right here, these atrocious events, and especially when it's like with children involved and whatnot, it's absolutely gut-wrenching. Absolutely gut-wrenching. And to just think that they, meaning like, you know, people who decide to do this type of stuff, like wrap their minds around that it's logical and that this is the only thing they can contribute to the world, I literally am speechless. So we'll just leave it at that. We'll just leave it at that. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. If you are still watching, I do appreciate it. Drop some little sofa soft for myself, Rosco and Spirit, Bo and Luke, the rest of the Sofa Squad, so I'll have a place to sit, hang out, talk about this case, all of the other cases we do talk about at the Sofa Squad. And until we all gather around the old sofa in the comment section to do all that, I'll see y'all soon. I just wanted to say thank you again for watching the whole video, and also thank you for being part of the Sofa Squad. Special thanks to all the Patreon members, channel members from both of my channels, everybody who likes, shares, subscribes, comments in the comment sections. It helps the channel out so much. Now, don't forget, I do have that other channel, the podcast channel. That's where we go live, we hang out, we talk. We have kind of sort of a schedule, but just be sure and check it out. I'll put it up here on the screen. And then, like I said in the beginning of the video, if you want to follow me and Rosco on the Instagram, go on, check it out. It's right here on the screen again. But once again, thank you very much. I really appreciate you being part of the Sofa Squad, and I'll see you in the next video.